You can start. You can start with a little bit.
Okay. So good morning, a very good morning, everybody, our esteemed panelists and all the academicians who have joined us today. My name is Sharang Arvind. I am the Associate Director at Prodigy Game and I look after the sales and customer success. Today we are connecting to talk about a very relevant topic in education. National education. Request everybody to please keep your Zoom on mute. Thank you. Yeah, we are talking about the National Education Policy 2020, coding and gamified learning. Friends, as you all are aware, the government came out with the National Education Policy recently, and that has had a tremendous change, a vast different step from what we have had till now. The entire 10+2 system is about to go as we see it. Coding, something which the Prime Minister himself is saying that every child should be learning coding because the future is about artificial intelligence and even beyond that. We don't know what tomorrow lies, how complex, how different technology will change. But coding is something which is inherent to that and that would stay. And gamified learning. Uh, Obviously, we know that the world has shifted. It is now almost mandatory for every child to be on the screen because they cannot go to school. And how do we engage children continuously on the screen, limiting their screen time, but also making sure that they are not distracted? So gamified learning or game-based learning is catching a lot of vibe these days. People are talking about it left, right, and center. People are saying, the entire education system will shift towards gamification, in 5 to 10 years time. So we have got very senior panelists with us who are going to talk about these relevant topics. And I hope that you will find a lot of takeaways from this panel discussion, which is going to happen today. I have with us today Radhakrishnan sir, who will be our moderator. Thank you, sir, for being there today with us.
Thank you.
Radhakrishnan is a passionate educational professional with 25 years of experience. Sir has donned many hats. He's been a teacher, he's been a lecturer, curriculum designer, researcher, collaborator, academic writer, teacher trainer, vice principal, principal, secretary, and president of prestigious professional bodies. He is currently spearheading a team of academicians at the Center for Educational Initiatives and Research. Welcome, sir, and thank you for moderating this session.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We also have with us Ms. Mahalakshmi Satish. She is the India Director of the world's largest game-based platform for mathematics, which is called the Prodigy Game. It has over 10 crore users across the world. Ms. Mahalakshmi has 12 plus years of work experience spanning technology, design, services, and education domains. She has worn several hats as a software programmer, as a business development manager, marketer, as well as an entrepreneur. She introduced Prodigy to India market in October 2018 and has since built the team, and she's grown the India business for Prodigy Education. Welcome to today's panel discussion, Ma.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Sharang, for the introduction.
Good morning. Our second panelist today is Mr. KVS Prakash. KVS Prakash sir has been the founder mentor of the Innovation Space Regional Science Center at Tirupati in Andhra Pradesh. He is also the life member of the ISTD, that is the Indian Society for Training and Development, New Delhi. He has served as a principal, vice principal, and as an advisory for many prestigious institutes across India. Welcome, sir. We also have with us today Mr. Pradeep Sahu. Mr. Pradeep Sahu has been a mechanical engineer by profession. He has 25 years career in the IT industry, working for several multinational companies. He founded Eureka Online in March of 2020 right after COVID hit India, with a vision to bring computer and technology education accessible to everyone and everywhere. His current focus is to build curriculum to complement school education even while training young children across the world. Welcome, Pradeep sir.
Namaskar and welcome. Thank you, Prodigy team, for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts and experiences.
Thank you, sir. I now open the floor to Radhakrishnan sir to moderate the session and to start with the panel discussion.
Morning, everyone. We are organizing this particular session in the context of NEP 2020 and also in the context of the pandemic. And as we all know, the pandemic has changed the whole paradigm of classroom teaching. We are forced to move out of the four walls. And as you know, we were not ready to move out of the four walls, but nature has forced us to move out. So everywhere, everyone is discussing about online teaching. That is one context we are all familiar now to a large extent. And on the other side, last month, government has come up with national education policy after 3 decades, a new national education policy. And this new national education policy emphasizes lot many innovative methods. It includes coding, gamified learning, integration of AV, ML, machine learning, like modern innovations in EduTech. So in that context, we thought it would be nice to have a panel discussion. And that panel discussion will help people, the stakeholders in the K-12 field, to clarify their doubts. Because there are a lot of confusions and what I can say, misconceptions going on. And that creates tension for school leaders, school owners, educators, parents, students, and society at large. So I hope today's discussion will help us to settle many of those confusions. And as Sharang was telling, we have a set of expert panelists who are in the field for last 2 to 3 decades. So their expertise we can use and we can go ahead and clarify our doubts. And before I go to the panelists, I wanted to bring to the notice of the audience that please ensure that you mute your audio, because in between, if someone talks, some noise comes, it disturbs the flow of talk by the panelist. And even for me, it disturbs. Sometimes I may be talking on some topic or something, but when some disturbance comes, our mind goes somewhere else and the connection we lose. So please mute your audio. That is one thing I wanted to request. And to the audience, there is a chance for you to clear your doubts or anything related to the topic. You can type your queries on the chat box that we will look into. And at the end of the question answer session for the audience, panelists will be addressing your concerns, individual concerns, whatever questions you have. You can just put up it in the, what I can say, in the chat box. Then we will look into each of the experts. According to their expertise, they will take up the question and they will answer. And the flow of the program also I can brief. Now we will be starting with 2 minutes. Each of the panelists will talk on their general view about NEP 2020 coding and gamified learning. Each of the panelists will talk for 2 minutes. After that, we will enter into the panel discussion. In that, questions will be mutually asked and the panelists will be answering. 2 rounds of questions will be there, and there may be some sub questions also to clarify the concept better. Then after that, we will be again giving the panelists 1 minute each to conclude whatever they spoke, linking between whatever concepts were shared by different panelists in the discussion. Then we will move on to vote of thanks, then national anthem, then signing off. So I hope everyone is clear. You may be thinking the sir is talking just like a teacher. Yes, we are all educators. So naturally that comes whenever we enter into an online session or an offline session, whatever it is, it comes into that. So now I'm not wasting time. I'm moving into the panel discussion. In that, the first 2 minutes for general comments on the topic. So I would like to request the senior most member in the panel, and he has got 3 decades of experience in this field, and he is very much related to what I can say edutech. And most of the time, whenever some doubts come up in my mind, I used to contact Prakash sir. He comes up with some wonderful ideas. That's what I wanted to talk about Prakash sir, if I tell personally. So Prakash sir, it is now your time. I'm giving you 2 minutes to talk on the topic, general views. Yes.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the panel discussion. And look at the title, it's NEP 2020 Coding and Gamified Learning. And in my view, it is like old wine in new bottle. There's nothing new. It's really good. Maybe they might have made small little changes here and there. You might have seen all of you about CCE, etc. And the first time my students started learning computers or coding was in 1986. We had BBC computers, where technical people will be knowing here, DOS version 2, we started using, and then teaching them Logo. Some of you might be knowing, especially Pradeep will be knowing, the coding and all you are talking about, Logo. So that was a small thing. Now you use Scratch programming and all. It's really good. And everything is for our own good. The COVID has a lot of positive changes, especially it has shown the courage of the teachers in India who are new, who do not know anything, and they have struggled within these 4 or 5 months. Most of the teachers are now well versed with using your video conferencing tools and preparing their own PPTs. And then they have come out with a lot of indigenous ways of preparing lessons in spite of the challenges. Okay, but I'll tell you, most of them started criticizing about the quality of teachers, that, this and all. Imagine one of the doctors also has put, suppose a doctor is performing an operation on the table, he doesn't allow all the public to see or the relatives to see, isn't it? It's only his team does. But here the teacher has been exposed to the public. You look at the parents, grandparents, everybody is watching in the house how he is going to deliver. And in spite of all this, I'm really happy that Indian teachers are coming out with a lot of enthusiasm, challenges, and they're standing up to their confidence level. Kudos to all the teachers. And that's it. And coding and gamified learning will last long, and it will be like ABCD. In future, everybody has to learn this. That's it. With this, I land.
You are on mute, Radhakrishnan sir.
Audio.
One second.
Yeah.
As Prakash sir just put up, yes, Indian teachers, they have come out wonderfully well, even though they were pushed into a new environment of online teaching. Now over to Pradeep sir for your comments for 2 minutes.
Sure. Just extending from what Prakash sir mentioned, I mean, computers and technology has been there for so many years now. It's nothing new. But as we see today, thousands of scientists are trying to find a drug or vaccine for COVID, for example. We are sitting around thousands of kilometers apart and going through a video conference. So all of this has become ever integrated, right? We have become a very connected world. and technology is ever pervasive, completely available to everyone. Context, it has become so relevant that we use the computers or the computing devices, everything related to technology in the connected world, and that is why it has become more so important that everybody from us, not only about the digital literacy part, plus also for people who are actually working and developing these programs. So coding and computing is becoming very, very relevant, right? So that's why it is no longer an option. And in the future, as we progress, it looks like more than 70–80% of the jobs will be on technology or the use of technology and computing power. So it is very important that we need to know what is computing and coding. Just for the benefit of all, just to give a quick layman's definition of the context of computing. Computing or coding or programming is nothing but giving instructions to a computing device or any device or a machine which has computing power. Not necessarily only a computer, but it could be a phone, it could be a TV, it could be a video, or it could be a camera or any other device. Any device or any device which has computing power, the ability for humans to instruct those computing device, and that is the basic fundamental concept of coding. And
Yes, absolutely, Pradeep sir.
yeah, with
Yes,
that,
absolutely, Pradeep sir.
yeah, and we know how important it is. With that, back to you, Radhakrishnan sir. So
Yeah.
go through
Yes,
the
Pradeep sir has told us the importance of coding and how relevant it is in the present day context of COVID. And post-COVID also, it will be relevant, there is no doubt, because career options are changing. Now over to Mahalakshmi ma'am on your general comment on the topic and how you relate this topic to today's, what I can say, our panel discussion. Over to Mahalakshmi ma'am.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Hi, everyone. Once again, quick introduction. I'm Mahalakshmi, and I'm the India Director for Prodigy Education. Prodigy is well known in the academic circles for its popular game-based math product, which caters to classes 1 to 8, grades 1 to 8. And as a senior member of this team, I am personally as future career pursuits. So I'm really thrilled to be here today as part of this panel discussion to share some insights on how Prodigy and specifically game-based learning has been impacting math education in these challenging times. I think since I have a little more time, I would like to give you an example. Recently in the month of September, which was also like a very COVID hit time, for schools especially, we conducted a tournament. A tournament is nothing but an online contest on Prodigy, yeah? And we had more than 35 odd schools or 40. Take a guess at how many questions were answered by these 40 schools and their students in just a matter of 1 month. It was more than 30 lakh questions. So which means that with a typical student strength, if you were to give homework, how long do you think it would take that homework to reach 30 lakh questions? Which is something which is so powerful. And that's why we strongly believe that game-based learning is so powerful that children themselves don't know how many questions they end up answering and how much math practice they end up gaining through this program because it is game based. Otherwise, if you had given them regular homework, they would have never imagined to have crossed that many questions. just a small example. So I just wanted to show you the power of game-based learning. Thank you so much for this opportunity again. Thanks passing it.
I completely agree with you, Mahalakshmi ma'am. As you told, around 32 lakhs of questions children appear, because if we give in the regular classroom, they will get fed up with. Because game-based learning, generally what happens, it makes children enthusiastic. And they
Absolutely.
do, right? And they do the job unknowingly and they learn.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
it's all about learning things unknowingly. How child learn language from the mother. In that way, we should be able to impart whatever knowledge we want to give to the children. And game-based learning is one of the best tool for that. I'm talking from my experience of last 5 to 6 years, because all these started coming during the last, especially during the last 2 to 3 years. And right from the beginning of game-based learning, I am into it. I am into it means I have no idea about game-based learning, but I got people, those who can impart that knowledge to my children. I benefited my students like anything. So that only today I'm sitting here as a moderator for this discussion, because I feel this is the need of the hour, especially for avoiding the fear of mass from the minds of children. They can enjoy it like anything by using game-based learning. So now we are going into the panel discussion. For that, certain questions I jotted down. So I will be putting up those questions to different panelists, as I know these panelists are experts to answer those questions. So first question, after putting up the question, I will be directing the question to one of the panelists. And based on that, the panelists can answer. Because generally in the classroom also what we do, we put up the question to the whole class. Why? When we put up the question to the whole class thinks. After that only we point to a person and that person answers. That is the beauty of questioning. Always put up questions to everyone. Let everyone think and later let someone come up with points. Okay, my first question for this panel discussion. Are online game-based products relevant only in COVID times, or will their prevalence continue post-COVID? Because we are discussing about online teaching and everything, so that this question comes up in my mind. Are online game-based I think Prakash sir will be the right panelist to answer this question. Please, Prakash sir.
Okay, so necessity is the mother of invention. All of you know, maybe during these COVID times, you are using these game-based products, and then after going through this gamification, it has been there. Even in those days, you have plenty of computer games going around, and then you learn how these, like for example, your company is doing. There are a lot of other companies doing it. How best you can incorporate the learning concepts through games. So it's not only just for fun, and indirectly the child learns about the concepts. And this whatever you're talking about, game-based products or gamification is a subset of game-based learning. So it will continue to be there even after this, because as I said recently, yesterday also I was watching the news, the artificial intelligence is going to take over. Children should learn coding. It should be like you're learning mathematics tables. In future, it will become, right now you're using Scratch programs, some other programs. I think Pradeep is training right from LKG, small kids and all. So you have so many things going around, and it will be there even after the COVID continues, and it will be part and parcel of your curriculum. So, but this will definitely, as Mahalakshmi said recently, definitely these game-based products or game-based learning will definitely increase the what you call the curiosity, creativity, and sustain the motivation and interest among the children to learn the concepts better, and it makes the teacher's job little bit easier. Okay, then the child teachers A teacher is just a facilitator now, and previously we had this, what is it, before NAP you had CCE, you don't know what happened. But I think the greatest challenge is the mindset of the parents, teachers, and the learners. So that you will have to little motivate and see that they really understand or taste this game-based learning. When once they taste this, definitely it will be a smooth run. And most of the schools do not have the necessary, I am blunt in telling you, most of the schools are not ready and they do not have the infrastructure. Main thing is the infrastructure and the facilities that are required. And you'll have to train the teachers in this game-based learning. Of course, I can help, and I'll give you a lot of free resources that are required. And Radhakrishnan knows. So all the teachers, all the people who are attending this program, you can take my help. Definitely, I'll be able to help you people. And definitely this game-based learning will help, and it will be in the long run and bettering the student-teacher learning, and it should be happy learning for both the teacher and the student. So initially you will have teething problems and hiccups, but that will be overcome. And now almost all the teachers are digitally empowered. Now they know slowly they'll get into the next stage and then get into that. And this will stay definitely even after COVID. And this will be part and parcel of your school curriculum or college curriculum. There are a lot of things that are going on, and this will game-based products. And you have simulations. Already you have simulations, like say you go to a driving school, you learn, you have a simulation. So first train the teachers in these simulations, then slowly the students also will get over. Already my students are using some math game-based game apps. They're showing me. They come out and tell me, sir, this program is better than this. I'm able to do this. So it will continue to stay there. Yes, Radhakrishnan, you can continue.
You are on mute, sir. Radhakrishnan, sir, you are on mute.
Yeah,
Oh.
I forgot. Was based on 3 points, mainly based on 3 points. The first one, he is telling that it will continue even after the post-COVID situation. Then second point, he was telling that a mindset change is very essential, because we have got a traditional mindset. From that, there should be a mindset change for children or teachers or parents, for the whole society. Yeah, are you able to hear me now? Hello, are you able to hear me? Yeah. See, as Prakash sir was telling, the mindset should change. And also, third thing, infrastructural investment. Schools should focus on infrastructural investment to improve the system. So to conclude, the 3 points he put up. First one, it will continue even after post-COVID situation. Second, there should be mindset change for whole society towards online teaching, and also towards using gamification like tools. Then the third aspect is schools should be ready for investment to have basic infrastructure for digital learning. Now, as a sub-question to that, I would like to bring Mahalakshmi ma'am into the discussion as a sub-question to that. How is Prodigy Maths or game-based learning relevant in online learning, especially during this pandemic?
Sure.
Yeah.
I can speak from the context of Prodigy. Prodigy is, it aids assessments more than as a teaching aid. It is more of an assessment or a, practice aid for schools. And the way it helps is because right now a large percentage of our schools are completely shifting or partially shifting to giving out assignments on Prodigy itself. And since this is a completely digital product, it doesn't require any corrections. It doesn't require too much of time to actually collate the questions and put it together in the format of an assignment, which typically is the most time consuming task for teachers, right? on a digital form and then put it out there. And then there is a added headache of corrections and then scoring and then telling the students how much they got for each of those assignments. So that is completely negated and it becomes an easy two-click process, two-step, two clicks process, which hardly takes a minute to set up on Prodigy. So it's a huge time saver, effort saver for teachers in these times, especially because everything they have to manage online. So any tools which allow for increased productivity, they are definitely for it. The other thing is it also allows them to, through game-based learning, the child is never left disengaged. The child is always ready to play a game any day as compared to if they have to sit and do homework on their notebook or if they have to answer worksheets online. That's a huge win. And that's why game-based products work so well in these times, because anyways, they have to do their homework digitally. So instead of having to give that screen time for solving a question or solving a worksheet on a Google form, I'm saying spend the same screen time getting them to play a game. You will see that they will not just answer the assignment questions, they will go above and beyond and practice many more questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a
What-
way that I see it help right.
From Mahalakshmi's talk, what I understood is, it is very handy for the teachers during this COVID time. And also it helps to sustain the interest of the children in learning maths. And these are two important aspects. There should be some tool for the teachers to use for giving assignments or assessment or anything. And that is possible. And at the same time, it maintains the interest of the kids to learn. Now over to, thank you ma'am for adding those points. Now my next question is, it is related to coding. Now everywhere, when we open WhatsApp or what I can say, any professional network or Facebook, everywhere we can see hundreds of advertisements on coding, whether it is white hat or something else, whatever it is. And there is a huge fees. So many are collecting a lot of money, so many free tools, lot of things. And I know Pradeep sir is very much involved in Eureka and coding, teaching of coding to children, free of cost at a concessional rate, different things and all. So I have a question now. How is Prodigy, what is the relevance of coding in the context of National Education Policy 2020 and future career options, and in relation to future career options? Obviously, this question is to Pradeep Sahu sir, because you are the best person to answer this question. How relevant code in relation to NEP 2020 and also future career options. Over to Pradeep sir.
Sure, thank you. Maybe I will try to answer the second question first, because that is probably the easier one.
Okay.
The question about career options, right? As everybody is talking about, you mentioned alluded at the beginning of my discussion, that anything from farm to fork or from telecommunications to the space research or satellite launch, we have technology and computing, right? So the fact that you have billions and billions of devices, billions of computers, billions of applications and appliances, everything all connected, and so it all means that you need people to be able to write programs to control and operate them, right? So very simple. So the fact that you will need people to program and control these computers and these devices, that means you need programmers or coders. So you need the coding skills as one of the primary or foundational skills for most of the jobs. Some of the research or prediction says that more than 70 to 80% of the jobs will be in technology, in various different application areas. And what it means is that you will need developers and programmers to run and code these computers. So essentially that's the simplest answer. So from the career option perspective, coding definitely is a key skill to build, and which opens up numerous various opportunities in the technology space. And not only technology space, let's say take the area of uh, everything else outside of technology, uh, uh, be it science, be it research, be it pharma, healthcare, or anything else. You still have technology implications in those. And that is why people, even in arts, music, there is an implication of use of coding and technology to create music, to create art. So all of these things are coming into play. So essentially it means that the 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 distance or the concept of human and machines is getting blurred. They are kind of getting merged together, and that is why we need more and more people to build the skills of coding. So that's the answer to the second question. Coming back to NEP, I mean, I will also add the context of Atmanirbhar Bharat, for example. uh, so combine these two things together, and we uh, need a foundational level important role. And more important than coding, there is a concept called computational thinking, which is basically the core skill that we want our children, our young people to build. And coding probably is one of the easiest tools and means to build those skills in the children. So that is why what we say that in the context of NEP, and for building a great future for our people, and for to lead the world, we need to inculcate or incorporate coding in our curriculum.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. That means you opines that NEP introduces coding from grade 6th,
Yes, that's
and
right.
you feel that's a very good thing for the children
That's correct.
because
Yes,
that will help them innovate in and and also that will help them to build their career in future, right, in higher studies and also in their career in future. Yes, good point. We are moving on. Now, one more question related to NEP. NEP talks about skill mastery and innovative teaching methods to improve learning methods. What role does gaming platform like Prodigy play here? Can Mahalakshmi ma'am give your view on this?
Sure. So there are two aspects to this question. One is the skill mastery. So let me talk about that first. Skill mastery does not come just from solving assignment questions. We all know that teachers face this constant challenge that they need to finish portion or syllabus on time, and they need to keep moving on as fast as possible, right? And that's like a constant challenge that we hear from most schools. Now, along the way, what happens is they're not really able to focus as much on developing skill mastery in each and every student, because the lack of time, the lack of resources, and the lack of personalization. So these are some of the areas where a tech tool like Prodigy can actually step in and say, hey, I will support the teacher in taking over and making sure that every student reaches a level of mastery for every topic within the subject, right? So for math itself, this means that the teacher can move on to the next topic, but then she can still focus on giving particular type of questions, particular level or difficulty of questions for different set of students within the classroom based on their proficiency levels. And it also means that if a student needs more time to get to a level of proficiency, the tool actually allows you to differentiate your assignments. It allows you to make sure that the average learners don't feel threatened by the fast learners or the slow learners, right? So for each level of learning, it allows the child to progress at their own pace of learning. It allows them to develop proficiency at their own pace based on how comfortable they are. And that is one of the biggest the beauties of having a tech tool integrated, because
Yeah.
it's not going to, it's not running at the same speed as the teacher is running. So that's what I would like to talk about with respect to skill mastery, that it allows a child to progress adaptively and then get to a level of skill mastery at their
Yeah.
own pace and build proficiency in each and every student so that nobody gets left behind. Now, when it comes to innovative teaching methods, now with regards to teaching, there are a lot of audiovisual methods and aids which are available, which definitely help to build more conceptual clarity and understanding. But when it comes to checking for whether that learning has been retained, retention of learning is equally important as being able to teach innovatively. So I would say that a game-based learning program like this really falls in that category, where I'm able to assess whether you have retained what you have learned as a student, right? And that's where I would say Prodigy really falls in being part of that whole umbrella of innovative teaching methods.
So you feel that it will benefit schools and teachers very much. All right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you do you want to add any points to that? Whether it will how it will benefit to schools and also to teachers in that? Whether you want to add some points to that?
Sure.
That it will be more
Sure.
specific to principals and managements.
Definitely, definitely. So one of the things that most schools are challenged with is, how do I make sure that I prepare my students to be ready for testing, which is like examinations and things like that, right? And everywhere it is outcome-based learning. But what we seldom fall short of is, how do we implement outcome-based learning? Because we are so geared towards focusing on marks and the ultimate student scores. Sometimes we forget to assess whether the student has really fundamentally understood and learned and then is able to show outcome apart from just the test scores that we assess them on, right? So that's where really a program like this has been helpful to a lot of schools. We have been
Yeah.
able to show them with a lot of data. So data is the backbone of any technology device or any product which or tool that is used for schools. So with the help of a lot of data, we are able to show schools and principals as well as teachers about how much have students really progressed from the start of the grade to the end of the grade when it comes to really learning the concept over and above whatever they scored on their unit tests and semester exams, because those are things which are testing them at one point in time. But programs like this on Prodigy, we are testing them continuously throughout the entire year. So we are
Yeah,
able to
absolutely.
tell exactly where the student has fallen short, where the learning gaps are, where are they struggling, and where they have really excelled and gained mastery.
Yeah, to add to what Mahalakshmi ma'am spoke, even the new education policy, government says we focus more on output. And when we speak about output, we should have data to analyze. That means only data-driven instruction will help us to focus on output. And these type of tools, whether it is Prodigy or anything, a game-based or anything, or online platforms, because they use big data and everything, so all the data is pooled. So it will help us know whether right kind of output we are getting or not, or whether the children are acquiring the level of knowledge or the level of skill they are attaining. That is all about competency-based learning. That's all about data-driven instruction. So that data we can pool and we can analyze. Excellent point you have put up. Excellent point. And now, Again, when we talk about this gaming, coding, and a lot of confusions are there in the minds of parents. Not only in the minds of parents, even school leader like me are getting confused whether it should be introduced at the age of 2 or whether it can be introduced even in the pre-primary years itself, or we have to wait until the child reaches 6th or 8th or higher secondary level. We have such type of doubts in our mind. And when we open the social media also, we can see a lot of advertisement on that. Okay, if your child is just 2 years of age, still you can go. Or second standard, still you can go. So many people call us and ask, sir, when should my child start learning coding? Or a gamification technology they start using? What is this AI? And not many questions, such type of questions comes. So I would like to put up a question here in this context. What is the right age or class to introduce coding in the school curriculum? Pradeep sir, if you can put some light on this particular aspect, it would be wonderful.
Sure, I'll be happy to do that. Okay, so let me take in the context of NEP, right?
Yeah.
So from the context of NEP, very clear that the guidelines suggest that in the middle stage, essentially middle stage is where kids starting grade 6 is where it is recommended to start coding as a part of the curriculum, right? So definitely that's good. That's a welcome step, and at least we will bring that into our curriculum with this NEP. There are other countries around the world where coding has been introduced much before grade 6 actually. That means much before even at the preparatory stage itself. So in that context, let me share some thought here. The idea of coding is not only about coding the computer or essentially giving instructions to the computer, but one of the reasons why coding is so important, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, is to develop the concept of computational thinking in children. So computational thinking doesn't necessarily need a computer to be available to build that skill. So essentially, there are 3-4 components of computational thinking, which actually helps build the problem solving and critical thinking skills in the children. So maybe just for the in the interest of time, I'll just on a high level I will put it here. One is called abstraction. Then another is called there are 4 topics: abstraction, logical thinking, and then there are 2 more concepts there. So what we need to do is we need to bring those concepts very early in the children. And as we know, up to the age of 6, probably 85% of the brain development happens, right? So some of those concepts using computational thinking, problems using coding as are being now recommended, and we actually do that for children as young as 6 years old. The only challenge there is we do not use the physical aspects of computer and computer programming with lot of syntax and all of those. We use some of the other tools that are available, which is like a visual programming, where where kids simply use the blocks, they sequence the blocks, they move around the blocks, they repeat the blocks. Some of these block programming techniques they use, and they start to learn. So short answer is that from the curriculum perspective, the actual coding perspective, the programming language perspective, yes, we will do it from grade 6 onwards. But to inculcate or to incorporate the computational thinking concepts of coding, we can start as early as 6 years old in the foundational and preparatory stage itself. Yeah.
Okay, Pradeep sir. So you are telling that it can be started at the primary stage itself, whether it is from 2nd grade or 3rd grade, there is no issue. The basics we can start.
That's right. But we have to be careful in terms of what we teach them as coding. We don't really need to use them to a lot of syntax and all. That's not the right approach, but rather use them to concepts of sequencing, concept of logical thinking, those computational thinking concepts, using simple programs. That is what we will do that. And there are tools and technologies available nowadays which make it easy for instructors, teachers, and anybody, even parents. Actually, you don't actually need always instructors or people in the teachers in the school framework to teach them coding. A lot of these computational thinking concepts you actually can teach them at home. So that is important. Yeah.
I think here comes the importance of companies like the edutech industry, or edutech experts like a Prodigy or like you, Eureka, such type of, or Prakash sir like people. Here comes the importance, because if schools doesn't have really a digital head to recommend what is needed, what is useful for the kids, they have to take advice from these type of modern edutech companies, what I can say, headed by youngsters who are more into that, because people of my age, we are not born into that. But youngsters like Sharing or Pradeep or somebody, if I, all these people are born into. Here comes the role. The school principals and school managements should select properly who are the best advisors to take help, rather than just depending upon the IT teachers in the school. They have to go into the market. They have to find who are the best people to guide us to set the curriculum for coding, because coding curriculum also won't be properly guided by central government or education ministry. To an extent, schools will have the freedom to implement. At that time, schools should select Eureka or Prodigy like companies, and or someone else who are best in the market, and do that. And add to that Pradeep sir's answer, I would like to bring in again Mahalakshmi ma'am over here. Because what happens, there are a lot of talks about this gaming, whether this gaming will help the people or not, like that. The gaming or coding, whether a edutech integration, whether it will help the children or not. Now, do you have, or can any one of the panelists or Mahalakshmi ma'am put up some research-based studies on this? Then that will be a great help for our delegates to understand. Okay, research also proves that game-based learning is wonderful, or edutech integration in academics is wonderful. Do you have anything of that kind, dear panelists? And if Mahalakshmi can, ma'am can come over here, because you have a long years of experience in this research. Yes, ma'am.
Sure, I can take that question. So when we looked at how can we back game-based learning and our product with some third-party research, I think what we wanted to do was, rather than looking at, okay, is it India specific, is it US specific, or any country specific, we wanted to do it as at a global level. And so we approached this prestigious Johns Hopkins University, which is very well known internationally. So it's a globally renowned university which has a lot of academic accreditations and backing and many years of research. We had requested them to conduct a neutral, unbiased kind of study around Prodigy and its effectiveness in schools. So we have a very, very thorough and comprehensive research report and study that has been conducted by this university. And it very clearly states that, or, it has recommended and it is concluded that like 60 minutes of Prodigy usage actually leads to 1.5 times the number of the improvement in scores for some of the students who take part in the final exams. Now, I don't want to say specifically is that for an Indian student or for a US student or anybody like that. But then in general, it says that since students are already so prone to using technology, they are born into the technology age, right? So all the students that you see attending schools in this generation, they are all born into an age where mobiles are prevalent. Their homes have, internet access and connectivity and all of that. So it's not something new to them. And it is very much something that they are able to, they are exposed to, and they automatically take on. So the research also states the same thing, that it reduces student anxiety towards mathematics in general, which means that if I were a student who had this general fear for mathematics and it reduces their anxiety, because now they are no longer facing a test like situation or a worksheet like situation. They are playing a game. With game comes a lot of happy emotions and a lot of excitement and thrill and fun. And because of that, it spills over to the way they answer those questions. So there is no pressure on them. They feel less pressure, less anxiety. It also improves their confidence, because the more I practice math, anybody knows, more math practice equals to better scores, better outcomes in math, right? Automatically, I get better at solving questions. So that's how it has been so effective, and especially for the average learners, the slower learners, to pick up and come to a level where they can really get confident about the subject, and they no longer have that resistance to math, which I think inherently in our education system, we always end up seeing students face that in the higher grades, at least in the higher grades, I know that. So that's one of the areas which it strongly talks about, and the study also backs it up.
Okay, good point you put up. I actually had that question, whether it helps anxiety to control the anxiety of the children, and you have answered already that question. Thank you so much for that. Now, connected to that, I'm taking up another question. With a greater focus on skill development schools, what do you think are the opportunities and challenges to school systems to respond meaningfully to the emerging needs? Can we connect this concept with the integration of edutech and coding-like aspects in the curriculum? Can Prakash sir take up this question and answer from your experience? That will help us. Prakash sir, are you clear? No, you are unmute, sir. Please unmute. Please unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm looking into the question. How you can integrate of edutech and coding like aspects in the curriculum. The challenges, main challenges, like already I've told you, it's the mindset of the parents, teachers and students, and infrastructure. Digital infrastructure is more necessary. Though people have their mobiles, laptops, etc., school should have a uninterrupted power supply, and the ambience that they set up. At least they should have minimum, depending on the strength of your school, they should have at least minimum 40 to 100 laptops or computers or backup power. That's the main thing. So then only they'll be learning properly. And skill development is something. It depends on the strength.
That depends on the strength.
And skill development is very much essential. Even without all this, those schools, especially, I tell you, you can grade the schools like this: lower income group, middle income group, or higher income group. Like you have, like you have 5-star hotel, 3-star hotel, and ordinary hotel, like Kamath Hotel. So it all depends on the budget they have and then do. And even at low cost, you can implement these things. Schools can implement, even say underprivileged children also can be doing it. And what are the skill development? Skill development, not just coding and then using computers. Skill development can be done even in nowadays. You had this, what is a socially useful productive work, say carpentry, we were taught carpentry, or lathe machines we were asked to use. We had all those facilities. Even now, what these schools can do where they don't have infrastructure. Simple example I'll give you. When I start making chapati, it becomes Andaman, Australia, Africa. Okay, it's because I lack skill development. Simple. I use only simple words. So what you require is make your children do a lot of things. Whether in your school you have a lot of groups, if you have gardening. Now space is premium now. Most of the cities I see, they're in storied buildings, and they have. And for them, what I suggest is once in a while, once in a month, you call one cycle repair shop fellow. He'll bring a bicycle and he will dismantle the bicycle and then do it. Let the children learn. dismantle their own bicycle and do it. You call once a scooter mechanic. One of my friend is there in Bangalore. He is a Bullet World Club member. So he removes the complete bullet and then assembles it. Bring such people. Or scooter mechanic, ask him to tell the minimum this thing that they can take care. Children will learn these things. Like this car. Similarly, you can ask a computer teacher or computer hardware engineer to open the computer and do. And long back, I have seen in US, one of the principal gets a call from somebody. They say, there is a network engineer in your school. We need him urgently. So there's some problem in all this. He said, we are all students. There is no engineer here. They said, no, they mentioned a name. And he calls, the name happens to be a 9th grade child. And he calls that boy to the principal's chamber. He asks, are you doing? Yes, sir. Part-time I'm a network engineer. So I'm a consultant. They are calling, they have some problem. Enthusiasm of a child, how he has become expert at that age. And recently I was in Chennai, one of the software engineers' sons, they have their own company. They have started their own company. So it has come in the Hindu newspapers. So skill development, you can do a lot of things. Nowadays, practical knowledge is more important. It should go side by side theory. So that's more important. It's very important that to provide them with the necessary infrastructure. Otherwise, nothing. And it's also cheap. You can, depending on the cost effect, that also you can do. I can help them. And how you can integrate that, definitely that can be integrated into your coding like aspects. You see, you are fixing CC cameras in your school. So let that CC camera engineer or installation fellow teach the children how he is fixing, how he is doing all that, how he is setting that. Exactly, they learn a lot of things. And artificial intelligence is going to be here. So whether you say you just open the door or close the door, it's going to happen. Or you scratch your ID card, how you are entering. So your GPS tracking system. Children are smarter now. Children are very smart now. The only thing is you will have to, coding is nothing but it's like you are learning your English or Kannada or Malayalam or Telugu, whatever languages. So you have different languages. Programs, as Pradeep said, don't frighten the small children. It's not that parents should get frightened. Oh, right at the young age, they're learning some syntax, some C language or something else. It's not like that. You have scratch programs, logo, simple programs where they just use the blocks and then do. Even you have on this robotics, they use Lego programming. If you have seen, they just put the blocks on the computer and then connect their robot model that they have done. And then Arduino programming, you can see Arduino kits you can bring. I have tried with the 8th standard kids, 7th standard kids. They are able to do better than engineering students. All of them come to me. So 6th and 8th class children are better at doing an Arduino project than an engineering graduate student.
Yeah.
So when they come out for their projects, I've been experimenting in the science center.
Yeah.
It's really good. So coding like aspects, definitely you can integrate into the curriculum, whether it is a maths, either physics. In those days, my physics professor has integrated. We were learning GW basic, if you know basic language, computer language. He has integrated how to use the control the thermometer, the temperature and other aspects in the lab. So we used to program and then integrate that. So children will definitely do that because it has come a long way. Now everything is visually based, graphic user interface systems you have.
Yeah.
It's very easy for the children to learn. The only thing is you'll have to just inspire them, motivate them. That's it. Like Mahalakshmi said, there's no competition here, competing with myself. So I can learn at my own pace. So there's nothing to get frightened. But every child till the 10th standard will have some knowledge. Till 10th,
Absolutely,
he
sir.
learns all the subjects.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay, with this, over to Radhakrishna. That's it.
Yeah.
Anything else they can ask me.
The insight,
Radhakrishnan,
Prakash sir,
I would like to just add one point to this.
Yeah.
As continuation of the infrastructure piece and students and that, I would like to add that just an example. So when we actually took Prodigy to introduce to one of the tier 2 towns, I mean cities, in a bunch of schools in Bidar, the surprising thing, the first question I asked there was, okay, to the students in a classroom, okay, have you all played any mobile games? Are you all familiar with mobile games?
Yeah.
It was
They
very
might have played.
surprising to hear the students, everybody shouted out PUBG.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is they are born into a digital age, which regardless of geographic barrier, location, whether you're in a town or city, it doesn't really matter now, because internet penetration has made this a
Yeah.
global village,
Yeah.
Yes.
right? So every student, every child out there is aware of the internet, has played or accessed something, whether it's a WhatsApp or played a mobile game or downloaded something on their from App Store. They've all done it. And you'll be surprised that the minute we showed them once how to play Prodigy, they were so quick to adopt this. So they just didn't, infrastructure didn't matter to them. Whether the school had internet access didn't matter, because if they knew their username and password,
Yeah.
they would go home, use their parents'
Yeah, use
mobile,
it.
and log in and play.
True. True.
Absolutely.
True.
The fact that they are not complete English natives, they are not people who understand the English language as well as maybe the kids in North America, that also didn't matter to them, because it's a game.
Yeah.
And every game, it has like the game mechanics is something that students really pick up very quickly. They grasp it very quickly.
Yeah.
So it's an innate mix of, when something as powerful like technology is given in the hands of students, they are ready to pick it up and absorb it instantly. And that is a fascinating power of this age of children, this generation
Yeah.
of children.
Yes.
That's why all of this has become so much more hot as an area, right? Because the students are accepting it and want to learn digitally so much more than the students could in those years. When we were growing, we probably didn't have the same level of understanding and mindset also to absorb technology the way that these kids are.
Yes.
So just wanted to point that out.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. From what Prakash sir and also Mahalakshmi ma'am shared now, from that what I could understand is opportunities are abundant.
Yeah.
If we are ready to analyze the challenges we have and work on it, opportunities are abundant. Infrastructure doesn't matter. Suppose you don't have infrastructure, you can work on skill development that can be done in rural areas, like calling a carpenter or a mechanic or something like that. And one more thing I wanted to emphasize here is in this context is, when we talk about skill education, generally we immediately get into white collar job skills.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to tell is, even though I am sitting on a platform, a digital platform, what I want to tell is skill education is not only digital skilling or what I can say white collar job. There should be people to work as an electrician, as a plumber, as a farmer, right, as a horticulturist. There should be people. So schools should choose the skill development areas from grade 6 onwards. Now 10 plus days, etc. are there. Schools should choose according to their infrastructure and local setting. That's what I wanted to add. Opportunities are abundant. There is no dearth. But how we exploit, that matters. And also, if we are talking about a digital accessibility, when 5G comes, the scenario will change. Even what I can say, augmented reality, virtual reality, machine learning. Without a server in the school, you will be getting all these things online. I'm right, I think, Mahalakshmi ma'am. I'm right?
Exactly. Yeah. I think at some point our schools will also move towards bring your own device.
That's what I'm telling. 5G will change. 5G will change the whole school and classroom scenario. That's where we are going into. That itself talks about the relevance of digital learning in the post-COVID scenario. Yes, we can move on. Now, I would again, the second round of question that Mahalakshmi ma'am left, I have to ask you so that I have to put up a question now. A lot of online learning is being talked about these days, right? Every day people are talking about online learning. We hear about billions of dollars foreign companies are funding education companies. Is online online learning is the right way to go, considering the issue related to screen time. People are telling, now what I wanted to tell you is a lot of money is coming into Indian education industry. At the same time, on the other hand, parents and teachers are worried about increasing screen time. How we will relate all these and how we will provide to the parents a right method of learning. That's what I wanted to ask you. How can you guide the parents or teachers or school leaders on this increased gain time, at the same time, lot of investment into edutech industries and all? How you will relate all these confusing aspects or contradicting aspects? I think Mahalakshmi ma'am, my point.
Sure, I can take that question. When
Could you
it
hear
comes
my
to
question?
screen time, yes, I could hear your question. When it comes to screen time, this is a common concern across parents, across whether they are from cities or towns, big, small schools, everywhere, right? I think the first thing that I would like to point out here is screen time is inevitable. Now, your house, you're always exposed to gadgets. You have television, to laptops, to mobile phones, to tabs, and everything around you. So there is no way that you can keep a child away from screen time. But what makes the difference is good screen time versus not so great screen time, right? So how can screen time be replaced, the casual screen time be replaced with something which is educational, which is productive, which is constructive use of screen time? And when the screen time, maybe there are timings that you set aside for your child to use screen, right? Whether it's for educational purposes or entertainment purposes. But give them a balance of screen time and real time as in real life, real interactions, real thing which are not virtual, because they need to be in the real world and they also need to be in virtual world, right? So being able to balance that and making sure that there is enough of parental control over that. Technology tools cannot take over that aspect of control from you. Typically asking a game or asking a tool to lock out someone from the system is not a great option. But the parental control and judgment has to be exercised at all points. So that's my take on screen time as to how to make use of it more constructively. And that definitely you have a lot of options nowadays with edutainment related products, especially games like Prodigy. Now, sorry, I would like to bring up the second aspect. Radhakrishnan sir, you asked me to comment on something else as well.
Yeah, then my another point, this is my personal thing, a personal question to add to that. Now people are talking about gamified learning and also game-based learning, right?
Yeah.
Difference. Even I am confused. In some of my webinars where I am a resource person, sometimes people put across this question, sir, what is the difference between this gamified and game-based learning? Can you talk for 1 minute on that? We are running short of time. Still, I am talking. If you can bring it in brief.
Very quickly. Yeah, sure. So the fundamental difference between game-based and gamified, although they are used randomly, they are used as an overlap. Gamified learning uses some of the game-based mechanics, which means like if I'm solving a quiz, right? It is gamified learning because a quiz is nothing but you get points for each and every question you answer. You get badges, you get rewards, you get a final leaderboard where you can see your ranking and things like that. Those are game mechanics which are used in that quiz, right? And in an online quiz. So that is gamified learning because you're using some game components in this. Game-based learning is where it is completely immersive. You are in the game. You are inside a game. You're playing the game. You're going through different levels and challenges in the game. And as a result, you're also learning. So if you're in a simulation, you are in a actual game, you're playing a role in that game, or you're doing some action in that game, all of that is very immersive as an experience. It is very different from just solving a quiz and getting badges at the end of it.
To interrupt you, ma'am, to clarify, to have a better clarification, to interrupt you. That means you are telling that game-based learning is involving directly into physical games. Is it like that? Is
Yeah.
it physical
Like,
games?
like the training or the learning is actually happening as a game. So it's a very immersive experience where the character is within the game, the character is doing some action in the game. Character has to maneuver or navigate to different parts of the game, the different zones, take up different challenges, have to build skill as a result of playing a game. So that is game-based learning. The other one, like I said, it's more like a quiz, which has these game components built into it, like coins or rewards, or you can collect prizes along the way. You have incentives along the way. Yeah, that's the difference.
Okay, great. Pradeep sir, would you like to add some point to this game-based?
Yes, as Mahalakshmi ma'am said, essentially that is the difference, and that is what really brings the engagement level in children. So they are having fun, and at the same time they are able to apply the learnings and use those learnings while playing the game. So this is very different from just either doing the not so good game, just or doing something else. So that is why it is important. So even while coding, some of the concepts that we actually bring into play is to have the children apply those knowledge. For example, when they are building a game, they need to know the angle at which they have to throw the ball, so that it follows in the right trajectory, so that it falls in the place where it is directed to. So all of those calculations, mathematics, physics, science, all of those have to be applied by them to, and that is how game-based learning is what Mahalakshmi ma'am was.
Absolutely. Yes, now we are coming to the final round of this discussion. I would like to thank all the three panelists because you have put up answers beautifully well. And I think that delegates may be very clear about what is this all about. Now, I would again like to give 1 minute each to the panelists to conclude your point of view on the topic. 1 minute each. And I think we can start with Prakash sir.
Okay, NEP 2020 is good. The National Education Policy, after so many years, they have come out with a change. And it's good that they have included this coding and then gamified learning into the curriculum. And it is going to stay, and we'll see. I'll tell you, I'm hoping that in another 10 years, you will see a sea change in the teaching learning process in this country, and definitely we'll do something best. And we'll be able to compete globally. That's my idea. That's it.
Thank you, Prakash sir. Over to Mahalakshmi ma'am. Your 1 minute comment.
Sure, thank you. So it's a great step forward. Definitely that, the education policy has been refined, has been upgraded and updated also. And it also clears the pathway for a lot of technology as well as other new age learning methods to get implemented and incorporated within the education system. What I see that schools might be struggling with is that how to do it, how to incorporate. Because while the guidelines are very, very at a high level of that we need to incorporate, but they generally struggle with, how to go about making that change, how to go about overcoming the inertia and getting momentum in a different direction. What kind of changes would it impact on the teachers, on the students, on the overall infrastructure requirements in the school? And that is where I feel all players, tech players, have a big role in helping schools and guiding schools on the how aspect of it. And that's where I feel Prodigy as a company will have the biggest role to play in incorporating NEP's requirements with the way that we impart gamified learning.
Thank you, Mahalakshmi ma'am, for the insight. Now over to Eureka. Pradeep sir, I started calling Pradeep sir, now Eureka, Pradeep sir.
Sure.
Over to Pradeep sir, you can add your concluding remarks.
Sure. Just to extend what Prakash sir and Mahalakshmi ma'am said, I mean, no doubt that NEP is a fresh look, a paradigm shift, and it gives everyone the opportunity, not only the parents, teachers, as well as the students. Actually, it gives a lot of flexibility and opportunity to students to use and incorporate this new age technologies for the benefit of preparing for future. So it's a welcome step, and we all need to work together. And things like the gamified concepts, learning maths, coding, all of these which we need to adopt, and we can actually use them for the benefit of our future, right? So it's not necessarily always the infrastructure. We can overcome those infrastructure challenge. A lot of these technologies are available free of cost or open source, and or at a very lower cost. So we should make work together and take it to every part of our country in the context of what we are talking here. So let's work together towards it. Thank you for giving the opportunity to share our thoughts here. So great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pradeep sir. As a moderator, once again, I would like to thank the panelists for keeping the time while answering the question, so that we are on. And also, I would like to thank, from moderator's point of view, to all the audience for the patient listening. And also, I would like to thank the sponsors, the Prodigy, for inviting me as a moderator for such a wonderful discussion. And I believe National Education Policy 2020 is a wonderful document. There should be wholehearted support from each and every corner to get it implemented for the future of the country and for the future of our children. And youngsters have a great role to play. When I see the faces of Sharang or Mahalakshmi ma'am and all, and people like me and Prakash sir and all, bit all. But when I see the youngsters' face, the smiling faces when we see, we feel a lot of hope. So that hope the young generation should keep up and help the country grow in the coming technological world by training our children in EduTech and helping the teachers to integrate with the curriculum. That's all I wanted to tell. Now over to Sharang sir.
Thank you, Radhakrishnan sir, for your kind words. Today has been a big learning experience for me, with Prakash sir's examples of how you can bring a cycle guy to the school and just dismantle the cycle and see how it goes. Pradeep sir's entire coding experience and how you've given us insight into what to show and what to do with the young children in coding and what not to do.
Yeah.
And Mahalakshmi, with your experience, live experience of working in schools in like small towns like Bidar, like it's been a really humbling experience for me. So thank you so much, all the panelists, and thank you to our audience as well. We at Prodigy are really humbled with your and all the people who have been present today to be with us. Prodigy really believes in a world where every child will love learning. And we are moving towards that goal every day, one step by step. We've been a pioneer in game-based learning with 10 crore students. 10 crore people are using Prodigy, which is a significant number. From USA to Australia, across the globe, we have users. We have partnered with 4 lakh schools, and we are helping them deliver learning through our maths game. And we are seeing engagement levels which we have never seen before in any educational product in India or abroad, sir. So why this works is because while playing the Prodigy game, the child gets questions from topics that he is really learning at school itself. So the control of the questions is with the teachers. and the teacher selects the questions and the topic that the child will practice at home. Based on the child's performance, the teachers are able to see skill mastery report, assignment completion report, and there are many other reports which the teachers can see. Even the parents are getting live information about their child's progress in the grade, along with notification of assignments. So this, this ecosystem of student, parent, teacher, school, we have woven it very well together, which has helped millions of students across the world and continues to make each of these children fall in love with maths. For any more information, or if you're interested to talk about Prodigy a bit more, you can contact our team members, Jaswant Rohit. I'd like to conclude by saying, dear attendees, we thank you for taking time out today for this panel discussion. And we hope that you've been able to find as much use as I have of this discussion today, and you can use it for your school's development in future.
Sharon, by the way, can you show your contact number or something? Then people can contact you if they need to know more about gamified learning or coding, etc. Okay.
Yes.
Show your thing. Okay, fine.
So these are the numbers displayed over here. If you want, you can get in touch with these team members.
The participants can take screenshot, then you can contact, that will be better.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So we will also reach out to you. We have displayed the number here. Please feel free to call anytime on these numbers to talk more about Prodigy.
Yeah. 1 second, Sharan. Pradeep sir, you are running this Eureka, right? And you are providing a lot of coding training and all. Can you tell, in 30 seconds you can take, can you tell about it briefly? Then the audience can make use of that also, coding.
Oh, sure. I mean, we
are doing Eureka.
Yes, we run a small enterprise called Eureka Online with a vision to bring computer and technology education to everyone. And our focus is using the simplest and easiest technology, low-cost technologies to and help children learn it practically. Okay? So essentially, so far we have more than 500 students already in the last 6 months already benefited from this our programs, and we run programs all across, not only about coding. Various different subjects. Coding is one, of course, the most popular one, but we cover subjects like IoT, app development, design, which includes 3D modeling, graphic design, and many other aspects, including presentation and all. So, for the holistic development of digital literacy, so to speak. So kids and as part of our CSR initiative, or our vision is to take this training to underprivileged children. So we are also looking forward to together to work with schools and educators who have children in the rural area or areas where infrastructure is low. So to be able to extend that benefit to the children and to bridge that digital divide. That's our goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Pradeep sir. Prakash sir, would you like to tell what you are doing? Any service kind? Would you like to add for 30 seconds? Prakash sir?
You're on mute, sir.
You are on mute, sir.
Yeah, I'm on muting. Okay, one thing,
30 seconds you can use.
All the attendees who are here, Radhakrishna knows me, you can, any kind of resources you require, something you just mail me or WhatsApp me, I'll give you free of cost. I don't charge anything, only,
I know.
Only offline. Most of the teachers can, or principals, managements, can, for any advice, they can just call me, mail me, that's it, or message me. I'm ready to help you.
And I think I just post on the chat box a lot of information. I have seen. Good. Thank you. Over to Sharang. Sorry, Sharang, to interrupt you in between.
No, sir. Thank you so much for taking out this time. And we'd like to now conclude with the national anthem, and then we can part. Thank you.
Yeah. Everyone can stand up for the national anthem like a principal. Just telling it is up to you. Yes.
अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता शुभ नामे जागे, तब शुभ आशीष मांगे, गाहे तब जय गाथा, जन गण मंगलदायक, जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, जय हे, जय हे, जय हे, जय 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 हे।
So now right time to sign off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you once again.
Okay.
Conclude on time. Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.